We're going to begin this Monday, September 15th in Israel, where some leaders are calling for the government to declare sovereignty over the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria. At the United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to support a Palestinian state. And today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio met today with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after last week's Israeli strike on Qatar. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio began his trip with a visit to the Western Wall. Even after last week's strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar, a U.S. ally, Netanyahu said the U.S. Israel relationship is strong. Netanyahu and Rubio met to discuss a number of issues, including the war in Gaza, freedom for the hostages, and the strike against Hamas leaders in Doha.
Your presence here in Israel today is a clear message that America stands with Israel. You stand with us in the face of terror, in the face of the incredible, I would almost say, Middle Ages lies that are directed against us.
As far as the president's been clear on the ongoing issues in Gaza, and that is that every single hostage, both living and deceased, needs to be home immediately. Hamas can no longer continue to exist as an armed element that threatens the peace and security, not just of Israel, but of the world.
In New York City Friday, the UN General Assembly voted 142 to 10 with 12 abstentions to pass a resolution declaring a Palestinian state. Israel's UN Ambassador Danny Danon condemned the resolution.
This one-sided declaration will not be remembered as a step toward peace, only as another hollow gesture that weakens this assembly's credibility. This is not diplomacy. It is theater. It doesn't shorten the war, it prolongs it. It does not weaken Hamas, it rewards them. It does not advance negotiations, it undermines them.
The Trump administration called the vote a gift for Hamas, and after the UN vote, a number of Israeli ministers called for annexation. Israeli Justice Minister Yariv Levin called the UN decision a reward for terrorism and added the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel. Even the UN decision will not change that. It is time to apply sovereignty to Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. This is the appropriate Zionist response.
Going to continue our coverage now with Chris Mitchell joining us from Jerusalem. So, Chris, what is the practical impact of the UN resolution on a Palestinian state? Is this just diplomatic language, or will it actually lead to something?
Well, you can argue, Ephraim, that what Ambassador Danny Danon said, that it was more theater than actually reality, is really true. This has been done before with many other resolutions about a Palestinian state. I think in terms that it really does have a lot of essence of just diplomatic language. In terms of actually making progress to a Palestinian state, it seems very unlikely. And because many people here in Israel do not want a Palestinian state, especially after October 7th. Hamas is a non-starter, not even considered that they would be part of any sort of Palestinian state. And also the Palestinian Authority. If you look at what they say in their official media, they call for many times the elimination of the state of Israel as well. They call for Jews to be killed or murdered based in Allah's name. So whether or not this resolution by the General Assembly, which really is non-binding, it really doesn't have any, teeth to it, really does seem a lot more like theater than actually something that will change things here on the ground in Israel.
If Israel does annex parts of Judea and Samaria, will that prevent the creation of a Palestinian state?
I think actually there's been moves by Israel that would actually prevent a Palestinian state. One was it was a non-binding resolution, but it gives a sense of how the current Knesset is feeling. They voted that they would never be a Palestinian state. Also, we reported last week about E1, which is an area outside of Jerusalem, and they have decided, Israel that is, to put about 70,000 residents there in an area that would prevent a contiguous Palestinian state that actually geographically breaks up between Ramallah and Bethlehem. Now, this land had been vacant for a long time, but it's just this push for a Palestinian state that's really pushing Israel to take steps to prevent a Palestinian state. So I don't think there's a... So this is things that are happening on the ground here. This push for a Palestinian state is increasing this effort to declare sovereignty of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley.
Even though Qatar is an ally of the United States, it seems as though Israel's strike on it did not damage the relationship between the two countries. What is the view there in Israel?
Well, it seems like, you know, President Trump seems to have said that he was unhappy with that strike in Doha against these Hamas leaders. There was that carefully constructed statement by Carolyn Levitt last week about the attack, where he said it was unfortunate that it was in Doha, but on the other hand, they wanted to make sure that there was a good thing that they tried to eliminate these Hamas leaders responsible for the October 7th massacre. So it seems like the White House wants to maintain a healthy relationship with Qatar. There are people here, and I think in the United States as well, around the world, that really see Qatar as not only the arsonist, but also the fireman. They play two sides of the same coin. They support terror. They've supported Hamas for decades, and yet, on the other hand, they want to court favor with Western countries, especially the United States.
What more have we learned about the Israeli strike on Qatar?
Well, we found out that actually it might have been a very dramatic episode where it appears that the Mossad was tracking these leaders based on their cell phones. And this is what Channel 12 reporter Amit Segal is reporting, that they tracked the cell phones. The cell phones were in a room where they met. They left to go for prayer, and then the strike happened. And apparently that might have saved many of these top Hamas leaders from being eliminated. Kind of a dramatic escalation there, or dramatic unfolding there that really kind of saved those leaders. We haven't seen many of them in public, but it remains to be seen if maybe they had been wounded or injured in those attacks as well.
What more can you tell us about Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza?
Well, dramatic things happening right now, Ephraim. They have been eliminating these high-rise towers inside Gaza right now, and you can see that almost every day, eliminating by now dozens of these high-rise towers. Why? Because Hamas is using them as command centers, as sniper positions, as places to go ahead and ambush Israeli troops. And they really haven't gone in a major way, it seems. They want to make sure that they're eliminating as much as they can of Hamas's infrastructure before they actually go in a major way on the ground. The other thing they're doing, Ephraim, is they're trying to get as many Gazans out of Gaza City, out of harm's way, and not to be used by Hamas as human shields. We understand now maybe 350,000 have evacuated. That's about out of maybe 900,000 to 1 million. So many still remaining, but many are leaving. And in the meantime, they're preparing for this major push on the ground to eliminate Hamas's last major stronghold in Gaza City.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. Already shaping up to be a busy week. Look forward to checking back in with you in the days ahead this week.